We are now live and recording.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining. I would like to call this special meeting of the Board of Education to order. The next regular Board of Education meeting is on Tuesday, August 22nd at 7:30 p.m. in the Board of Education. Good evening, everyone. This evening, as you can tell by looking around the table, we have some board members getting some well-deserved rest and vacation. But thank you to some board members that are zooming in. Also, we've got Julie Best, Katie Lublin, and John Cini that are joining us remotely. So thank you for doing that. Everyone deserves a little R&R over the course of the summer. My chairperson's report will be brief. Just I hope everyone that's listening or tuned in is enjoying some downtime for the summer. Work continues in the district at a fast pace with getting ready to open school. We'll hear a little about enrollment numbers shortly, and the hiring process continues and getting people in their positions, and shortly people will be showing up for training and convocation and onboarding and all that good stuff. So there is really no rest, in my view, having done this for over 9 years now, and the summer seems to be busier than ever in terms of what has to be done to get our schools open and ready. On top of that, we are on schedule and under budget, and we'll be fully opening the Oxridge Elementary School with the ELP for the new start of the school year. So that will be very exciting. The school will be going through some paving over the next couple of weeks, but there's a fast and furious pace up there. But we will have a brand new school 100% online when we start the new year with our ELP program. So a big thanks to a lot of folks, again, all volunteers that have been on that committee and that board, including folks from the board. So we're excited about that. So with that, Michelle, I will turn it over to you for any public comment. We'll start with anyone in the audience. Okay, we have our friend Joanna in the audience, but good. Michelle, let us know if there's anyone on Zoom.
If anyone on Zoom would like to participate for public comment, please use the raised hand icon. There are no raised hands at this time.
Great. Thank you, Michelle. We'll move on to Dr. Adley and the superintendent's report.
Yes, good evening, everyone. And somewhat abbreviated for summer, but we concluded a successful summer school that was well attended, and also the conclusion of ESY and the finalization of the Bridges program, which will conclude here at the end of the week on Thursday. The track, we're waiting for the rain to end to put down the complete final coating. It's likely it'll still have to, that they won't be able to use it immediately, but there's plans afoot for practices to be able to take place while that it's not curing, it's just the coating on the tab. So that should happen shortly. Communications without the families about the revised schedule for the HHR projects, and we'll probably hear a wee bit of an update that at the board meeting tonight. And as Mr. Chairman said, it's exciting to see the finalization and then the opening of the entire Oxridge. The finalization of asphalt, seeding, furniture, delivery, and painting has taken place. I have one small correction to the calendar. It doesn't impact students or families of start dates or dates for school. But inadvertently, the PLC on the calendar for September 21st, that's the first PLC of the month, recorded for Thursday. It should be Friday at the high school. So I'll have the high school send out a revision. I'll repost the calendar. It doesn't impact, students are still going to school that day, but I just want to note that. Amy has been working with our department chairs on curriculum revision and new curriculum updates to EduPlanet 21 and the planning for professional learning activities to go along with those revised curricular units. March has been extremely busy in the summer, as is customary. We have approximately 10 open positions at this particular point, 5 of them special education and 5 of them regular education. Off those 10, we have 4 finalists for 4 different positions coming forward in the next day or two. So probably looks like we'll have about 5 or 6 openings just at the end of this week. So we're continuing to work on those. The reading waiver, we haven't received anything other than it's likely we'll hear sometime in September. I won't bank on early September, but that's kind of what we've been told. So we're moving forward, but we're just waiting to hear. There's a couple of dates coming up. I will say that the convocation date, and I'll send this out to everyone for Thursday, August 24th. That's an open invitation to members of the board if you would like to join us. If your calendars permit, at 8 o'clock in the morning. It's always a nice time to greet our staff, and it's just kind of upbeat. If you can stop in for a part of it, you'll be most welcome. The new teachers come.
Alan, just excuse me, that's at the high school, correct?
That is at the high school, yep.
8 a.m. on the 24th. Thank you.
The 24th, is that, sorry?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
New teacher orientation is on Monday, August 21st. So just over like a week away or thereabouts, our new teachers will be coming and joining us. The opening day of school is Wednesday, August 30th for
What
students.
time is the new hire? Sorry.
8 a.m.
Thank you.
8 a.m. And as the chairman said, the next board meeting is August 22nd.
Thank you, Dr. Adley. Swaha, thank you for joining us on your summer break. I hope you're having a good summer break, but thank you. Anything you'd like to bring to the board's attention?
For high schoolers, there's not much going on right now, but I know senior portraits will be taking place soon. And then like fall sports preseason will also be starting
Great.
later this month.
Good. Well, thank you for being here. And I know you'll have a new teammate join sometime early in the new school year, so that'll be exciting. But thank you for being here and congratulations and good luck on starting your senior year.
Thank you.
Great. We will move on to approval of minutes. May I have a motion to approve the following minutes of the special meetings and regular meeting held on June 27th, 2023, and minutes of the special meeting held on July 19th, 2023. That's Sarah, second by Dennis. All those in favor? That is unanimous with all those present and on Zoom. Thank you. We will move on to board committee reports. Any committee reports? Sarah?
I can just update on the
Sure.
policy committee in the absence of Mr. Brown. The
Thank you.
policy committee met on July 13th. We talked about 3 policies. Policy 4400 is a social media policy. We had a couple questions for Shipman and Goodwin that need to come back to the subcommittee. So we will wait for those. And then 6210 and 6220 were the curriculum, development of curriculum, and then the challenge to instructional materials. The subcommittee could not come to consensus, so we will be bringing those 2 policies to the full board for a full discussion,
Okay.
hopefully soon.
Thank you. Anything, Jill, on your end, HHR?
Yeah.
Sure, thank you.
So folks have certainly seen the communications or hopefully seen the communications from the Hunley Homes and Royal Building Committee. We share the community's disappointment that the project has been pushed back to the spring, starting in the spring of 2024 and not August, about a week from now. There were a variety of reasons for that, but first and foremost, the simultaneous renovation of 3 elementary schools with a heavy mechanical, electrical, plumbing component is very complex. And there have been a variety of reasons over time why we have run as fast as we can to try to keep to a timeline to start this August. But there were a number of, we continued to hit a number of roadblocks, the last of which was our bid. And so what we have decided to do is to push back the start of the project to the spring of 2024. So completion date would be August of 2026. The committee is meeting again August 16th for an interim update. And then we'll be deciding on September, I believe it's the 6th, it should be a Wednesday, on exactly what the next steps will be. We're hoping that if possible, we can maintain some of the bids we've received and that we likely would go out in subsequent weeks to rebid other aspects of the project. We are very thankful for the work of the project team, for the hard work of the actual committee and the support of administration and their flexibility in getting the school system back to an as normal status so that the staff and students can be welcomed onto a campus that's ready to go forward with business as usual. And we certainly thank the community for their patience with us. We are not happy that this is where we are, but we really firmly believe that what is most important is that we deliver the quality that the community expects. And so with that in mind, we are taking this more slowly than we had originally hoped.
Thank you, Jill. As I said in my kickoff, that the Oxbridge Building Committee is actually meeting this Thursday, and we are on schedule and under budget. And so we'll be discussing kind of next steps with the building committee. We'll be discussing also kind of a fun grand opening and welcome to the full new school. So there's some exciting things going on at Oxbridge, and stay tuned to hear more about that. I'll also comment on HHR and extend a big thank you to Chris Price and Jill McCammon. They have done, along with their committee, a yeoman's work, and this is not easy, having gone through this with Oxbridge, and it's a very different project, building from the ground up versus renovating 3 schools. So I've been involved in most of the conversations and kept up to speed. I know from a business perspective, in my own line of work, there continues to be supply chain issues. There are interest rate issues with people borrowing and getting financing. That affects all the trades and the organizations that are part of, renovating or building a school. I've actually had some local people reach out to me over the weekend that heard about this, and they think we will probably be better positioned going out in the fall, and that the trades will have a clearer view as to what's going on with rates. They feel some of the trades have also kind of looked at the pipeline and realized some of this stuff might not come to fruition that they're banking on, and that there may be more opportunities. And so we might be in a better position all the way around going out the fall and having this new timeline. But I think the building committee, along with the Board of Finance, along with the First Selectman's Office and the Board of Ed, have done yeoman work in working through these challenges. And I think they put a really solid plan in place. At the end of the day, it's about doing it right. It's not about value engineering. It's not about cutting corners. It's about delivering kind of what we've, teed up the community to expect and how we go about these building projects. And at the end of the day, I think a delay to continue to deliver, really beautiful renovated buildings with a lot of, changes that will help improve the overall atmosphere and delivery of education is what's important. So we'll move on from there. Good. We will move on to presentations and discussions. So we will have a further discussion and possible action on draft district board goals and strategic plan for 2023-2024. Dr. Adley.
So basically what we've done since the last time we were together, we took your feedback and made the revisions accordingly to the board goals and or the strategic plan. So with your understanding, I'm not going to read through all of this. I will point out where the changes were made, and I'll go from there. There were no changes made in any of the goals. So hence that we haven't highlighted anything there. So I don't know if you want to pause on those, Mr. Chairman, or not, but there were no changes that we discussed them, but there were no changes to be made.
Yeah. And I'll look to, I see Katie and I see Julie. I don't see John, although maybe Swaha sees John. So there we go. Thank you. I want to make sure I cover our friends on Zoom. Any questions or thoughts? Katie, Julie, John? Katie? Sure, go ahead. I don't know if, Michelle, do you have to open her up?
No, she's good.
Oh, go ahead, Katie. Thank you.
Thank you.
We can hear you.
Sorry, just a quick question. Are we talking about just the board goals right now and then doing the
Yes.
strategic next? Okay, thank
Correct.
you. Then
Thank
I'll
you.
wait for the next round.
Okay.
Great. Thanks, Katie. Board questions, comments, thoughts? Dennis, good? Everyone good? Okay. Are we ready to move forward with possible action on the board goals?
They're joint.
They're joint, yeah.
There's a joint one here,
The
Mr.
motion
Chairman.
is
if-
joint.
if it's-
You're right.
if
Good.
it's- if
Thank
it's
you. I
okay, so-
misread that. Thank you.
So what
So
I'll
we'll
do,
move on.
Yep.
Dr. Adley, strategic plan.
so I'll just take each goal as it comes and talk to, well, actually, I don't really need to talk to it too much. It's sort of highlighted for you there.
Yes,
That should,
thank
they should reflect changes, suggestions and revisions. So 1B, there were some changes to timeline. There was changes to build in actually what we found from Tom Mooney for some of the pre-K curricula and some of the legislation that's coming down. And also to make the EduPlanet for pre-K. So that's in essence the changes that were made there.
So we'll pause there. Any questions or comments on one? Jill?
I'm just looking for a reminder, the play-based curriculum. I know we talked about the possibility of looking even beyond kindergarten. So this is just specifying year 3, but we would expect in years to come to see a more robust or a longer time horizon. Kids to be affected later in their academic career. Yes.
Oh, yes, this is year 3 just for the actual planning of it.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Just confirming.
No,
Yeah.
no.
And our plan would be to think about transition from K to 1 and ideally up to grade 3.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Katie, anything on goal 1? Julie, John? Go ahead, Katie.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm navigating multiple screens in a
No,
small
that's all
space.
right. Just raise your hand and we'll get you.
Thank you. So just a question about goal 1 being, the bulk of the educational component in teaching and learning. I wanted to ask if it might make sense to hold some space in here for either a review of what we might hear back from the state regarding the waiver, and then also potentially asking how Amy's arrival might fit into the conversation as well, if it makes sense to have some curricular updates and as they relate to this from her assuming the new role.
So I think if we look at 1B, Katie, where it says transfer of units to EduPlanet platform, what we tried to include there is our progress updates to the board along the way. So not just what's migrated into that software program, but also updates with regard to the changes, how curriculum is being revised, systems and structures maybe that we can bring together to curriculum revision and writing process. So we have greater coherence, especially 612. I've started to look at some of that, and I'm looking forward to the department chairs coming back from summer to engage in that discussion with me. So that is, I think, one area where we'll be providing more specific details about the work. Also, I would want to update the board there with related updates for assessment, instructional practices, professional learning that will support instructional shifts that should be made, and assessments that would provide opportunities for our learners to demonstrate those competencies and vision of the graduate. So that is one piece. I haven't spoken with Dr. Does that answer the question just about the curricular updates? That part of it?
That does, and thank you for pointing out that you did have that. I guess just the follow-up might be if you could even just provide a little color just verbally now as to like where you might see that, because I think the timeline listed is 3 to 5. When might you see maybe let's say the first of those updates occurring?
I just want to kind of see how we're laying out the work over the course of the year, because I want the updates to make sense to the work that's happening from a curriculum and instruction perspective, and also related to professional learning that we can offer our staff. So I think it's probably too premature, but I would think Q1, there would be some type of update, and not a thorough, all-inclusive, but some type of initial update and signal to the board about that work.
Kind of a progress
makes
update.
sense. Yeah,
Good.
Q1.
All right.
Just as a start. And then the other thing that if I can go on to the other part of the question, is that, can I do that now? The reading update, you good on that, Katie, Q1?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. I wanted to make sure I answered the full question. The next piece is with regard to the waiver. We hadn't talked about holding space in this plan for that, but certainly we'll want to be coming back to the board when we hear. I agree with Dr. Adley. I wouldn't anticipate hearing back from the state until the end of September, at which point I think then it might be fair to talk about how that update impacts what we might need to shift within this plan.
So I think what we'll do is we'll make sure as we do agenda planning that, we have the right amount of time once we get a signal from you as to whether it's end of September, last September meeting, or early October, and you all having time to review, assess, and really get a read as to what the state's saying.
Yeah, that's
That
very
makes sense.
reasonable.
Okay.
I spoke to Melissa Hickey at the state about a week ago, and she signaled definitely not before the end of September.
So we're looking at more of an October board update, depending on what information you have to look at and putting something together. for
I
the
think
board.
that's reasonable.
Okay, all right,
As soon as we know, you'll know.
good. Thank you.
You're
Is that good, Katie?
That's great. Thank you so much.
Good, good. Thank you. All right. Yes, Dennis.
So I
please.
have a kind of a general point. Looking at this and thinking that this is a document which is for the public consumption. I'm struggling with year 3, year 4, year 5, and I think it would be better to have dates.
Yeah.
Yeah, good idea.
Not specific dates, but just 2023, 2024.
That's a good
idea.
So that you can memorialize it if you
That
go
makes
back.
Because someone to look at it and say, well, what year are we actually in?
Exactly.
That's a good point.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
I think that's a great idea.
It is a good idea. I mean that seriously.
For a
Yeah.
friend, but
That's someone that manages projects and
Agreed.
development over there. He
Right.
wants dates. Thank you,
thank you
Dennis.
for that.
It's great.
Right, we are. in
This is
year
year
three.
three. Year three.
That's a
Clarify,
match,
right?
that's-
Tara, I was like, wait a minute.
I'm new
Yeah.
here, but what I picked up so far is year 3 is 23, 24.
Yes.
Okay.
Right, we'll go from there then.
Yeah.
We'll
So at
leave
least
it.
year 3 has a 3 in it.
Right.
Year 4 all before.
That's right.
Good. Thank you. Perfect. Good. Anything else on 1? All right, Dr. Adler, we'll go on to 2.
Yeah, 2 was talking about culture and climate, and so we separated this. This was under secondary, and we split it into 2 for the middle school wellness and climate program, and the same for the high school.
Anything? Tara, sure.
Yeah, could you just talk about what this wellness training program is? Do we know
Is
yet?
that in
or
that
is
second
it's
bullet,
That
Tara?
kind of, you know,
Develop a wellness training program? Is that second bullet? Okay.
yeah.
What is it, the second bullet? Sorry, where were
Yeah,
we?
develop a wellness training
Year
program and
4,
model
that's
for
the
staff and implement district-wide.
Well,
Or is that not flushed out yet?
yeah, no, it definitely hasn't been fleshed out yet. I mean, it will be in consultation with
It's just a,
the director of mental health.
it's kind of the theory.
Yes, yes, yes. No, definitely. Appreciate it. Thank you. There was 2B, Mr. Chairman, too, just that.
Sure.
That was just around the work of the DEI committee, and it was to review the prioritized considerations and so on. I think we captured that.
Okay. And again, I think actually, the more you look at this, the more once we have dates in it, it'll be
Easier.
it'll be a lot easier.
Yes.
So, good. Thanks, then. All right. I see no hands. We'll move on to goal 3.
Goal 3, this actually, I said it at the last meeting that the vision of the graduate and access to the board goals 2 is a big priority for this year, and you'll see that as a rollout at convocation 2. This was simply extending from K to 12 to pre-K to 12, which is on the second page too.
We'll move on to 4.
So 4 talks about changes that are around building the capacity of the staff to give people career advancement. The idea of the organizational structure of the organization and developing their roles and responsibilities and delineating those very clearly. And the board particularly wanted articulated feedback from department chairs to teachers to highlight that as a priority.
Yeah, I think this would be, to make sure this continues to get flushed out as we talk about, Marge is still hiring, as we crash through August into September, and, we know kind of the turnover that we've had. So I almost want to also hear from whatever groups you think we need to hear from, that feel they're contributing to what it looks like to build kind of career pathing models. What do the meetings look like? I mean, from a business perspective, we almost have a prescribed, some of the firms I've been at, methodology for how you talk to someone about a career, where they are in the career and what their advancement or their opportunities are. So I think that gets more and more important as the teacher population dwindles in terms of everything that you read, in terms of who's coming into the profession, in terms of who's interested in moving up the ladder, whether it's to an assistant principal or superintendent. So I think this, I almost feel like we should lead as a district in terms of how we look at career development, professional development, and that ties directly into retention and recruiting. And so I think that's kind of I know I tend to ramble, but I just, everything we deal with, whether it's contracts or the upcoming contracts, you know, it's a conversation, and it's a conversation outside of the board with other boards in town, along with the general community. Good. Anything else on 4? Go down to
So
4.
5, if you go to 5B, it's not highlighted for you. I subsequently, upon reviewing this, I highlighted it. It's consider implementing a new student management system at Aspen. So if you look at 5B at the end there, years 2024 to 2025. I highlighted it there because we took it out of, it was either coming out of communications or it was coming out of technology. I felt it's probably a 61.5 dozen the other really, but I kept it in the communications area here. It could easily go into, could go into the technology, but the technology one has been removed. So I'm just highlighting that as an extra.
But I think this, you know, it's the primary system that does communicate with parents.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
so. Communication, efficiency, I think that plays out fine.
That's why we left it there. Thank you.
But you're saying though, by putting in communications, the real driver is communication with families versus any other technological need that we might have from the system.
The communication communication from all constituents within the organization and our parents, yes.
So when we're looking at the measure of success, we'll really be looking at this system. The primary difference we're expecting it to make would be on how we communicate. Yes, to your point, through all parts of the system.
Yes.
That's our.
Yep.
Okay.
There's like little nuances. I don't know who told me, but you know, there's stuff within, I guess, the system that you're looking at that aligns with, I don't know, maybe Rich, you told me this, but the system should align with the cafeteria system so that if someone has a nut allergy, you know, something scanned underneath that.
So there's a better sync with a lot of different softwares
Yes.
with Power School.
Thanks.
So whether it's Snap, which is used by the nurses, or Mosaic, which is the food service of my school bucks, there is a much better sync.
So there'll be a synchronization with all those systems. That'll give a better picture of the student. Okay, good. Go
I'm
ahead,
going to
Jill.
quibble with putting it in communications, just because usually when you put in a system of that magnitude, you're looking at a lot of different drivers beyond
Yes,
just
you are.
communication.
You are.
So I think it's probably, sorry to push back, but I think we really are probably looking at multiple different metrics of success. Synchronization would be one of them. Probably the way that student information is stored is another one. Communication might be a third component. And I think
Can you hold your thought a minute, just for a second? Because if that's the only sort of change noted in there, if I can go just forward for a second, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
The goal, there is goal 6, there were no changes to.
Sorry, guys, can I just jump in? I had a question on 5.
Yes.
Sure, Julie.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. I think we had talked here about adding something about the website and doing some work to assess what our needs were around revamping or improving our website. So this was at our last meeting. We had this discussion.
I have that too. I think at the last meeting, as best we were talking about pulling that out specifically and naming it. I think that's what you're talking about.
yes.
Yes.
I would see that could be a bullet right underneath develop communication plan, right? Or.
Yeah.
I mean, or maybe it falls under develop a media package that includes logos, templates, and standard for communication. So what does our standard website look like? How do we want to communicate out to the community? What are the standards we want each website to look like and feel like?
I
So
think we're
if-
talking much beyond look and feel, though. I think it's the functionality of our website, the
Yes,
interface.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so,
I'm including that in my
okay, okay.
broad thought, but 100%. So
Okay.
does it fall in? I agree. I think we should have it as a line item, just so there's a focus on it.
Are board members okay if we add that in as an action item?
Yes. Good. Thank you, Julie.
Yeah, Julie, I think, I'm not quite sure how collectively we missed that one because that was clearly stated.
And we
All
can,
good.
you can flesh it out
Yes.
about like some of the stuff I said and some of the stuff Julie said. It's not about look and feel, yes, but the key I think is to Julie's point, functionality.
Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Our website guru is listening very attentively at the back there.
Good.
6, we did not have any changes to.
Yes, sword tower.
5B.
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 Talking about the other course grading.
So they can.
So revised alignment, progress reports, grading, reporting practices, what are we talking about exactly? Like, what are we looking to change? What do we see?
So you're potentially looking at standards-based report cards and aligning practices and reporting out to those standards-based learning expectations. I mean, that's primarily one of the things that you're looking at.
So is that, I'm not sure if this is where you're going, but this pops into my head. Does that have anything to do with aligning with anything the state's doing or the state's requiring?
No, not explicitly, no. There's not going to be any surprise here in terms of like, we're showing up with a new way of grading or anything. If there's anything to be changed, we bring it for board discussion.
I think the last time the elementary report cards were revised was, I have to say, at least 5, 6, 7 years ago. So I think it's definitely.
So does some of this also have to do with, I think, I don't know at what point in time we had this discussion at the board level, but also we had a discussion around how much feedback the teachers put in, especially at the elementary school level. Parents seem to like some of the written feedback versus just whatever the grading is. you
We
know?
actually have that ongoing now, Mr. Chairman, because that
Okay.
was a contractual matter.
Yes,
To come for a shared committee is up and running, has been meeting.
Okay, okay.
So this is more focused on elementary school, not high school, middle school?
It says K through 12.
It'll be K through 12. That may mean no changes.
What do you think, Tara? Anything
I
you
don't know,
want,
it just-
anything you
I'm
want
just-
to add there? Yeah,
Just wanting
it's
to
a
know.
little
what-
gray.
It's a little gray. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
little gray.
Well, maybe we can get an update. If this committee is doing some work, we can get an update as to what they're looking at. And if there's any feedback from a board or that we get from parents, we want to make sure the administration has. I think that would be important. I know Amy was part of contract negotiations, but there was a, conversation about the value that parents placed on the written or typed feedback, especially at the elementary level. And they liked to see the progress for each report. So.
That makes sense. And the other thing I would maybe just add, again, being very new and still finding my sea legs, if I'm thinking about the part here that's around aligning them to district guiding documents. So really thinking, I think, about the board goals, the strategic plan, the mission vision, but also the vision of the graduate. I think it makes good sense to look at reporting mechanisms. And regardless of what comes across through the state, I think we also want to look at college and career readiness. There might be some shifts that we would want to think about making in a report card. It's too premature for, I think, anybody here to suggest what those might be.
Okay.
But that might be another consideration. So college and career readiness, thinking about what are colleges and universities looking to have reported out. That's always something to be paying close attention to, but also other pathways that our students, our children might be taking. I think all of that will inform the work. And like Dr. Adley said, there wouldn't be any surprises. There would be transparency.
I like how you align that. You can, those are all bullets. Good, Tara.
Yes, thank you.
All right. 6, we're good on, Alan?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Katie and Julie.
Yes, sorry. Julie. Need to hear you.
Sorry, I'm also.
I don't want to
toggling
hear the
screens.
ocean waves crashing in the background, but I want to hear you.
A lot of screen toggling here. I just had a general question on goal 6 in light of recent developments on HHR. It doesn't look like any of the timing here has changed. Should it? Is there an impact here on when we would talk about an architectural study for Middlesex because HHR will now run a year later than originally intended? What are we thinking on timing?
Yeah, I'm thinking that we have to get through the next phase of HHR and then have to hear from the administration as to their thoughts. You've got some changes in enrollment. I think they're working through some whatever design changes day to day up there that they're thinking on. So I would say if HHR gets pushed out a little bit, my view, Middlesex would get pushed out a little bit also.
Just to throw it out there, it wouldn't mean that we're creating any bandwidth for Middlesex to get bumped up a little earlier by any chance, would it?
So I think so it's an interesting dilemma. One, you create a little bit of bandwidth for here within the district. But one of the things we learned about HHR is the companies who would primarily do this work don't have the bandwidth to do this work.
Yeah.
And it's likely that the middle school project would be very similar to the HHR projects. It would be heavy mechanical work. 'Cause you'd be looking at things like air conditioning throughout the school. You'd be looking at spacing, whether or not you need an addition or not. So speeding up the study would then put you in line with having to get maybe bids and construction work simultaneously with HHR, which would then negatively impact pricing for HHR. If anything, you'd like to maybe leave the study for next year, but whether or not construction happens the following year or the year out would depend really on how things shake out. I mean, one of the things we also learned from HHR is a lot of construction companies weren't doing any school work for a couple of years during COVID. And now you have school construction projects going on here. You have school construction projects going on in Stanford and in Norwalk and Brookfield and Danbury and Bridgeport and basically throughout the state, which is why you're not seeing a lot of availability from vendors. So pushing it up early would probably create negative impact just in a different way.
Thanks, Rich. That was a good update.
John, this is him.
John.
I heard a lot of words about construction at Middlesex. I think we're getting way too far ahead of us, even assuming that it needs construction. So I just want to not set expectations that we need anything before we even do a study. So just want to point that out.
Thanks, John. Anyone else? Good. Where are we on 7?
Goal number 7 in the technology. This is where Ms. McKenna, that the other goals sort of overlaps a little bit for technologies to maximize the use of teacher time to focus on their teaching and learning. I think that was Mr. Brown was suggesting that. Certainly Aspen to some degree will touch upon that. I'm easy of where the board wants to put Aspen, so I just point that out, that's all.
Jill, your thoughts on Aspen? Is Aspen better in this section in that it's just broader than communication and there are synergies we're looking for in terms of connectivity to other systems that could conceivably make teachers' view into students or the administration's view in each school better?
That is my general feeling, but as I'm looking back at it, we're calling goal area 5 communication, but it's actually a broader systems that says efficiency, coherence, and communication. And goal 7 is actually just technology unified with teaching and learning.
Yeah.
So I actually think I'm going to retract my earlier comment and just leave it where it is.
Good. Thank you for your retraction. Anyone online? Good. All right.
So, Mr. Chairman, with the updates of the years, which is the enlightenment of this evening.
Yeah.
Seriously, it's a good enlightenment. And the update of the website, I think terminology, that would, with those changes.
As amended.
As amended.
Yeah.
Yep. So may I have a motion to approve the proposed district board goals and strategic plan as amended through the board discussion this evening for the 2023-2024 year? May I have a motion, Dennis? Second by Jill. All those in favor? That is everyone that's present. Thank you. Thank you all for the conversation and the follow-up on that. I think we're heading in a good direction. We'll move on to update on enrollment for the 2023-2024 school year. And we'll turn that over to the man behind the numbers, Mr. Rich Rudolph.
All right. So total K-12 enrollment is 4,565, which is 68 students under projection and 21 students under last year. K-5 enrollment is 2,107, which is 35 below projection. This does translate into 107 sections based on the Board of Ed class size guidelines. We did budget 108 sections, so it is one less than budgeted. The change from projections include an increase in kindergarten and Tokenique. So that was the one that we were looking at that was right close to tipping, and it did tip. However, Tokenique in second grade fell below, and so it's kind of a wash in Tokenique. And then Holmes fell 2 students away from tipping in first grade. So we are requesting that the board set 107 elementary classroom sections for the current year.
So just for.
Anything, Dr. Ellie, you want to add?
Yeah, just context and just pointing it out.
Thank you, Rich.
Which was in the budget, right? So it was in the budget document that was presented and so on. We had actually sections projected at 5 for Oxbridge third grade. They have met that. So that's actually 61 students above the high projection for the enrollment for Oxbridge that was put in as part of the educational specifications. So 61 students above. Those pods are essentially 4 for each section. So this is a very unusual situation. So you can see the growth that's occurring there. So I'm noting that we will likely assume the word language classroom for that, because that's what we're going to have to do to staff it. But I'm just pointing that out. We have projected that for the budget and for the number of sections. It's sort of, since our last meeting, it's unfolded that is the case right now. So again, just sort of pointing it out at how quickly things are.
People have migrated to the Oxbridge community for the new school. So good. Board questions, thoughts. Katie.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions regarding Holmes first grade and Ox fourth grade. Starting with the first graders at Holmes, it looks like that that grade is only 2 students away from tipping, and I'm curious about removing that section, and I'm wondering if we might sort of, correct me if I'm wrong, but last year, I think when there was a section that was very close to tipping, there was kind of an agreement or a directive from the board about Dr. Adley going ahead and moving that forward if it were to happen in between the start of the day. So I just wanted to flag that. And then it also looks to me that Oxbridge fourth grade also is at capacity in all 4 sections. Is that correct as well? And I know that even though that building having a 5th section in 1 grade below, I'm curious about the potential for needing a 5th section in another grade as well, and how that might be accommodated.
Yeah, your
So it is correct.
4th grade is correct. Yes.
So that's pretty
If
tight.
it happens, Katie, we'll figure it out. We've figured it out for the last 9 years. And we've got a brand new school that we built some capacity into. So we don't want to start going down the path of encroaching on ELP classrooms as ELP continues to grow. But the district has always managed to get creative. And I think we have options if those sections break. And I think the administration will report back to us if it looks like that's going to happen.
When I did the math, I was concerned about that Oxbridge fourth as well. And I did the math, there were 5 classes, there would be 19.2 students, which is still more than what's at Royal. So
Yeah.
there is room for them to make the numbers work, but I'm concerned about the space in the building. And I am always an advocate for smaller classes, but I think you have to think about, the cohort too, and making sure there's enough para support.
Right, and I think that's a good point, Sarah, bringing it up. I think what the administration has done in the past with the board support is provide whatever support is needed on those larger classrooms. Julie.
Thanks. So I think, are we locking sections tonight though? I think, is that what we're saying? We're going to go with 107 sections. So we're not breaking any more sections after tonight. Is that correct?
Not at this point, no.
Not unless I come back and ask the board.
You can always come back to us, but we're locking in tonight, but we still have some time between now and the start of the school if something changes.
Okay, we do. Sorry, that was my question. I didn't ask it clearly.
But the difference this year, I think, is that we don't have budget control. We're not
Correct.
approving budget
Correct.
control, and that's what's been different in years past.
But within the budget, we have the ability to break one more section.
Correct.
Right. And we haven't spent our whole budget yet this year, so we should be good. We should be able to find the dollars if we need to. If I could go in another direction, I was curious what the thinking is on the different sizes of classes across the 5 elementary schools. We're looking at some schools having 24 kids in a 5th grade and other schools having 17 kids in a 5th grade classroom. I won't say the dirty R word, and I'm not suggesting it. I just think it's something we need to be looking at and ready to discuss if we think that changes an educational experience or how it doesn't, and are we doing whatever we need to do to ensure that everyone's getting the same amazing experience.
I think we always have to be mindful of the swing in the numbers. If for some reason, like numbers were so low, I think you'd have to sort of consider some other options or at least I think along those lines. So in these numbers, I would continue to look at it if there's dynamics that would suggest we have to make some changes in terms of whether it would be, and you don't want to say redistricting or otherwise, but you just have to, but we'll have to continue to look at the pattern as it develops.
Yeah, I mean, we've always approached this that we work with the guidelines and then it's based on the enrollment and how the enrollment plays out in terms of sections. So you don't have really small classes. And yes, we do bump against, our high mark, but
I'm talking, Duke, about school to school. So if one school's 4th graders have 17 kids in the room and another school's 4th graders are 24 kids in a room, how that
that leads to broader questions about redistricting and stuff like that. If and when, the board wants to have that conversation, but you can't drive or predict the turnover in communities or neighborhoods like Ox Ridge, where, everyone decided to buy a house in Ox Ridge because of a new school. And some of these communities are smaller than other communities also, and some of them have higher turnover. I mean, there's, I think at some point in time, we have to look at, the folks from Avalon going to Tokenique. We haven't had any real impact, Rich, on federal, correct?
Only 4 students so far, and they're not all elementary.
4 students out of federal, and they're not all elementary. So I think it's something the board has to continue to watch, to your point. And then, if the conversation has to be about classroom sizes, or if it has to be about what the districts look like within those classrooms, if the goal is to even them out more. Jill.
But I do think that it's important that we always at this time of year remind ourselves that we have chosen the neighborhood school model with the understanding that there is some inefficiency. That's what you're saying, Duke, and what you're talking about, Alan, that right now that's our model. Yes, if it fails us because we have a school that doesn't have enough kids enrolling or something along those lines, but there is some difference in the student experience because we've chosen the neighborhood model.
I mean, the district has gone down the path of, Holmes was mothballed for a while based on enrollment and class sizes. So, all those things have happened over the course of time.
Well, we've had it with all the 5th graders were in one school and all the 3rd graders were in another school, and you could really smooth class sizes out, but then you get a very different kind of experience because of where you attend. You jump from school to school depending on the year. So,
Yeah, I would suggest that 3 or 4 kids, this is just me trying to give an educational perspective on it. It's not going to change the educational experience, but if it starts to sway consistently above that, then there's room to have that discussion.
John.
Thanks. First question, Rich, if you look at the longer term demographic kind of studies, we did a lot of population increase out of federal and the other developments related to the Avalon experience. And it seems like that assumption is faulty at this point. So I guess that's something to watch also as time goes on. I think perhaps Avalon housing attracted more families than what we're seeing at federal. And from what I'm hearing, the initial phase 1 at Corbin as well. So let's be mindful of that as we think also about, the neighborhood schools. And I believe the federal folks would have gone to, or do go to Royal, is that correct?
That's correct. So when you look at the actuals versus the projections, you'll actually see that Royal is under by about 20 students. And that is partly because we thought we would get more students from that development that haven't materialized as of yet.
Yeah, okay, so it's also something to watch over the next few years. And then the other point is within, I think, what is it, next fiscal year, there's an age limit on the kindergartners coming in. And I'm just wondering how that might impact each elementary school.
Yeah, well, potentially you've left less kindergartners and more ELP students.
Yeah,
Potentially.
I guess, Alan, the question was, could it impact unequally amongst the schools as well? And the projections that we originally had. So anyway, these are questions that can't be answered right now, but stuff to look at. Thanks.
Yeah, I think it's stuff to keep a view on. I think some of it you can get into too much crystal balling. You almost have to let a year or so play out, but they're good questions. Rich, any significant changes in Avalon or Kensett or anything like that? No. Okay. All right, good.
Can I just ask one more question just to understand?
Go ahead, Julie.
Thanks. Rich, this is probably for you, but when I'm looking at Middlesex and the DHS actual enrollment versus projected enrollment, is that, let me try to say this clearly, is that 12th grade number, the 11th grade rolled from this year, rolled up to 12th grade, or is that a projected number for 12th grade? I'm asking because I'm surprised that we're down 7 seniors versus how many seniors we thought we would have. It seems like a weird grade, for example, to lose a number of students.
So part of what goes into it is called retention rates. And so K-12, we don't retain 100% of the students. So it's not simply take the 11th graders and move them up to 12th grade, or take the 8th graders and move them up to 9th grade. It does vary by certain grades. We do typically see a lower retention rates from 5th to 6th, which means, you know, kids might come here for elementary, but maybe when they hit middle, they're going to a parochial school or a private school or whatever it might be. And then we see lower retention rates when you get to 9th, but sometimes we actually see higher when they come back for that 12th grade year. So it's not quite just rolling the students over. So it's a mixture of retention rates, it's a mixture of move-ins and move-outs. And then it is obviously the kids who just move up a grade.
Can I ask the same question about the 8th grade? The incoming 8th grade? It seems weird to lose 12 kids going into 8th grade. Any intel into that?
So we did have a number of students similar to last year who left to go to either parochial school or private school.
Just an interesting year to switch.
Good. All right, Rich, Dr. Abby, thank you. We'll move on to further discussion and possible action on proposed schedule of 2023-2024 regular Board of Education meetings and schedule of subcommittee meetings.
Well, I think this is our second reading of this, so if there's any, I don't really have too much to point out on this, Mr. Chairman. It's just our meetings.
So I think the one conversation that's come to me is just have a kind of a broad conversation or consensus on it. Was I've been part of the board when we started these subcommittee meetings at 8. A lot of that having to do with people commuting and train times. A lot of that changed over COVID. But I've had some folks ask if we could move some of the move the subcommittee meetings back to 8. So thoughts, feedback?
I think I'm fine with it.
Okay. Yeah.
Personally, works better for me.
Okay. Thanks, Dennis.
Helps
Katie? John?
It helps me.
Good. Katie?
8 a.m. is actually better for me as well. I do just want to point out that just the consideration to the public, and that there are a lot of schools that are not starting by 8 a.m. And I just feel it needs to be mentioned.
Okay.
I'll just point out it may prove difficult or more challenging for some of our staff members who live, actually some of the administrative staff who actually live a wee bit further aside. But that being said, it's just a consideration.
So go ahead.
I'm just gonna make the point that once we finalize these, that if every board member could put them into their calendars to make sure that we can have as many.
Well, what I've
meetings
asked is
scheduled as
that,
possible.
and she started doing, I've asked that
Maybe.
Nadine
Yeah.
send invites out once these are set. So do we want to move forward subject to potential time change? Yeah. Good. May I have a motion to approve the proposed schedule of 2023-2024 regular Board of Education meetings and schedule of subcommittee meetings? If there's any changes on the setting of the time for the subcommittee meetings, that'll be communicated out. Dennis, Jill, all those in favor? That is unanimous with everyone participating. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman. just a
Yes,
point of
Dennis.
order. We don't have to vote on setting class limit, classes, the number of classes. I always thought we did.
Because of budget control.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Good question.
It's in our budget.
We'll move on to appointment of an impartial hearing officer for the student disciplinary matters, expulsion, expungement requests, and for hearing accommodation appeals, including transportation appeals as provided by statute for the 2023-2024 school year as they arise. Dr. Adler.
This is an annual event where the board appoints the hearing officer to act on the board's behalf. This is from Pullman and Comley. Stephen Zador. This is the same attorney that we've used in the past. From his office this year, we used it once for the board. But beyond that, it's been limited, used limitedly. And I would propose that we continue this service.
Questions? May I have a motion to appoint Stephen M. Sidor as the impartial hearing officer for student disciplinary matters, expulsion, expungement requests, and for hearing school accommodations appeals, including transportation appeals as provided by the statute for the 2023-2024 school year as they arise. Jewel, second by Dennis. All those in favor? That is unanimous by Katie. You're good? Good. Thank you. Personnel report, anything you want to update there, Marge? Okay. Good.
Just
Yes,
for clarity,
sure.
we talked about there were 5 special ed positions still open, 5 general ed positions open, and there's 2 administrators left. Is that where we are?
The interviews continue.
Four of those positions are likely to go away.
Okay.
Like by the end of this week, if not earlier.
Jill?
Do we have any, are there any areas of concern?
No, I mean, one of the things that is happening is the teacher shortages that people are leaving later. But if you think about where we were last year, this is half the number of positions that we filled last year. Far greater number of administrative positions, but half of teachers and other non-certified staff.
What are we seeing in administrative movement across the state?
So I would have to check with the HR directors. I know that other lower Fairfield County districts are having some movement as well, more than in the past.
I would love to know more, please.
Thank you, Jill. Good. May I have a motion to adjourn to executive session for the purpose of discussion? Public comment, yes, I read right over that. Michelle? Anyone
Good
on-
evening. Would anyone, if anyone in Zoom or person would like to participate in public comment, please use the raised hand icon.
Good,
There are no raised hands at this time.
thank you, Michelle. I have a motion to adjourn to executive session for the purpose of discussion of the performance of the superintendent of schools pursuant to Connecticut General Statute 1206A. So we will now move into, I may have a motion. Dennis, second by Jill. All those in favor? That is unanimous by everyone present. Thank you.